Maggie May obviously turned my whole life around. It was about my first sexual encounter, which lasted about 3 seconds.
In the wild world of British rock and roll, Rod Stewart stood out as a rough-voiced legend whose strong pride often led to explosive fights with other musicians. The blonde rock star who conquered stages from small London pubs to massive stadium concerts wasn't just a charismatic performer who shaped rock attitude for many generations. He was also a fiercely loyal artist whose working-class background and honest approach often clashed violently with many other famous musicians throughout his long career. Rod Stewart, the Scottish-born rocker who gave us hits like Maggie May and Do You Think I'm Sexy, had an old-school code of honor and street-smart attitude that often crashed into conflicts with several major acts over the years. Stewart once admitted to Melody Maker magazine, with his typical bluntness, that he had always been a bit of a fighter. This scrappy attitude would fuel countless backstage confrontations and public arguments throughout his remarkable journey in music. These weren't just simple professional disagreements between musicians. They were passionate clashes between different ideas about what rock music should represent. From betrayals of band loyalty to debates about what makes music authentic, Rod's explosive encounters with these artists show us a performer who valued genuine rock spirit more than keeping diplomatic relations with other stars. The conflict with David Bowie. One of Rod Stewart's most notable conflicts was with David Bowie, the innovative artist known for constantly changing his image and style. This tension represented a fundamental clash between theatrical experimentation and straightforward musical expression. The friction reportedly started during the early 1970s glam rock explosion, when both artists were making their way through London's flashy music scene. According to former Melody Maker journalist Chris Charlesworth, Stewart privately told friends at pubs that Bowie was a calculated performer who changed costumes more often than he changed chord progressions. Stewart felt that Bowie's constant artistic transformations proved he lacked genuine musical identity. What really bothered Stewart wasn't just Bowie's theatrical approach, but the critical acclaim Bowie received for what Rod saw as superficial showmanship. While Stewart was delivering emotionally direct rock performances rooted in blues tradition, Bowie was getting praise for what Stewart reportedly called art gallery exhibitions disguised as rock concerts. Stewart believed these shows prioritized visual tricks over actual musical substance. The rivalry got worse when both competed for similar media attention and chart positions throughout the mid-1970s. At a London recording studio encounter, witnesses claimed Stewart openly mocked Bowie's latest character change. He reportedly declared that at least he knew who he was when he woke up every morning, unlike some people who needed to check their wardrobe first before knowing their identity. The clash with Bryan Ferry and Roxy Music. Another significant conflict involved Bryan Ferry and Roxy Music, the sophisticated art rock group, whose polished intellectualism reportedly clashed with Rod Stewart's blue-collar rock philosophy. The conflict between these stylish innovators and Stewart's gritty authenticity represented a classic divide between high art pretensions and street-level honesty. The animosity reportedly developed during the mid-1970s, when both acts were dominating British music charts with vastly different approaches to rock stardom. According to former Sounds journalist Giovanni Dotto, Stewart privately complained to drinking buddies that Ferry was a posh boy playing dress-up games with rock music. Stewart felt that Roxy Music's success proved critics preferred manufactured sophistication over genuine working-class expression. What frustrated Stewart wasn't just Ferry's upper-class background, but his transformation of rock into what Rod saw as an academic exercise. While Stewart was channeling raw emotion through traditional rock frameworks, Roxy Music was receiving critical praise for what Stewart reportedly called dinner party music for people who think being clever makes them cool and mistake complexity for actual feeling. Stewart allegedly told Record Mirror in 1975, without directly naming Ferry but clearly referencing Roxy Music's cerebral reputation, that music should connect with ordinary people, not impress university professors. He said some bands think using big words in interviews makes their songs more meaningful, but real rock speaks a universal language that doesn't require a dictionary. The tension reached its peak when both acts toured similar venue circuits throughout Europe. At a backstage gathering in Paris, witnesses claimed Stewart refused Ferry's attempt at polite conversation, reportedly muttering that he didn't chat with people who think rock music needs footnotes. The rivalry with Freddie Mercury and Queen Rod Stewart also had conflicts with Freddie Mercury and Queen, the operatic rock titans whose grandiose theatrical approach reportedly conflicted with Stewart's more down-to-earth performance philosophy. The rivalry between these flamboyant showmen represented a battle over who truly understood how to captivate massive audiences. The discord reportedly began during the mid-1970s, when both acts were establishing themselves as premier live performers with contrasting stage strategies. According to former Circus magazine editor Judith Sims, Stewart privately told roadies that Mercury was an overgrown opera student who thought bigger gestures equaled better entertainment. Stewart believed that Queen's elaborate productions masked fundamental weaknesses in basic rock. On grinding. What irritated Stewart wasn't just Mercury's bombastic style, but the widespread praise for what he viewed as calculated spectacle over spontaneous connection. While Rod was winning audiences through intimate storytelling and genuine charisma, Queen was achieving stadium dominance through what Stewart reportedly called Broadway musical numbers disguised as rock anthems that substitute choreography for authentic emotional communication. Stewart allegedly told Cream magazine in 1976, clearly referencing Queen's elaborate stage productions, that great performers don't need smoke machines and costume changes to reach people's hearts. He said some frontmen think louder and flashier automatically means more impressive, but real magic happens when you strip away all the distractions and just connect with the audience. The competition intensified when both bands headlined major festivals across Europe and America. At a 1977 backstage area, witnesses claimed Stewart watched Queen's soundcheck with visible disdain, reportedly telling his band members to look at all that equipment just to play basic rock songs. He wondered whatever happened to plugging in and letting the music do the talking. The feud with Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. Perhaps one of the most significant conflicts was with Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, the legendary blues rock pioneers whose manufactured rebellion reportedly earned Rod Stewart's contempt for betraying authentic rock principles. The rivalry between these British rock giants represented a bitter dispute over who genuinely embodied the spirit of rock and roll. The conflict reportedly originated during the late 1960s, when Stewart was establishing his credentials with the Faces, while the Stones were cementing their dangerous image. According to former Rolling Stone journalist Ben Fong Torres, Stewart privately told band associate, is that Jagger was a middle-class drama student pretending to be a street tough. Stewart believed that the Stones' bad boy reputation was carefully manufactured rather than genuinely earned. What enraged Stewart wasn't just Jagger's privileged background, but his widespread acceptance as rock's ultimate rebel despite what Rod saw as calculated posturing. While Stewart had genuinely lived the struggling musician lifestyle, the Stones were receiving credit for what he reportedly called boardroom rebellion, designed by marketing executives who understood image better than actual hardship. Stewart allegedly told Melody Maker in 1971, stopping just short of naming Jagger, but clearly targeting the Stones' media strategy, that real rock rebels don't need publicists to tell them how to be dangerous. He said some bands hire photographers to capture their spontaneous moments, but authentic rock happens when nobody's watching. The feud escalated when both acts competed for similar touring opportunities throughout the 1970s. At a London club encounter, witnesses claimed Stewart openly challenged Jagger's street credibility, reportedly declaring that at least his swagger came from actually living rough, not from studying method acting techniques. The competition with Robert Plant. Another major rivalry was with Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin, the mystical hard rock legends whose soaring vocal theatrics reportedly triggered Rod Stewart's competitive fury over who deserved recognition as rock's greatest voice. The rivalry between these vocal powerhouses represented an epic battle for singing supremacy in rock history. The animosity reportedly intensified during the early 1970s when both singers were being hailed as defining voices of their generation with dramatically different approaches. According to former Kerrang! Writer Jeff Barton, Stewart privately told session musicians that Plant was a fantasy novelist who thought screaming about Norse mythology made him profound. Stewart felt that Led Zeppelin's success proved audiences confused volume with actual vocal skill. What infuriated Stewart wasn't just Plant's operatic style, but the critical positioning of Led Zeppelin as more serious artists than traditional rock acts. While Rod was delivering emotionally honest performances rooted in soul and blues traditions, Plant was receiving acclaim for what Stewart reportedly called Viking cosplay disguised as deep artistry that substitutes mystical nonsense for genuine human experience. The competition reached its peak when both were featured in greatest rock vocalist polls throughout the decade. At a 1975 Industry Awards ceremony, witnesses claimed Stewart deliberately avoided Plant's table, reportedly telling companions that he didn't mingle with people who needed mythology books to write love songs. The ultimate betrayal. Ronnie Wood. The most heartbreaking conflict of all was with Ronnie Wood, the Faces guitarist whose defection to the Rolling Stones reportedly became Rod Stewart's most personal and devastating betrayal. The conflict between these former bandmates represented the ultimate violation of rock brotherhood and loyalty. The devastating split reportedly began in 1975 when Wood started working with the Rolling Stones, while still officially a Faces member. According to Faces biographer Anthony Noguera, Stewart privately told friends that Wood was a backstabbing opportunist who sold out years of brotherhood for a chance at bigger fame. Stewart felt that Wood's departure destroyed the most important musical relationship of Rod's career. What crushed Stewart wasn't just losing his closest musical partner, but the secretive manner of Wood's departure. While they had built the Faces together from struggling pub rockers into international stars, Ronnie was reportedly negotiating his exit without what Stewart called basic respect for someone who had been like a brother through every struggle and triumph they had shared. The betrayal reached its crushing climax when Wood officially joined the Stones, effectively ending the Faces and forcing Stewart into solo career uncertainty. Stewart reportedly felt that Ronnie had sacrificed their creative partnership and personal friendship for individual advancement, creating a wound that went beyond professional disappointment and became a lifelong lesson about the price of trusting ambitious people in the music business. Conclusion. These conflicts reveal Rod Stewart as an artist who valued authenticity and loyalty above diplomatic relations in the music industry. Whether his working-class honor was justified or overly stubborn remains a matter of debate among rock fans. What's clear is that Stewart's passionate approach to music created some of the biggest battles in rock and roll history, showing that sometimes the most intense rivalries come from the deepest artistic convictions. Stewart's conflicts with these 6 musicians, David Bowie, Brian Ferry, Freddie Mercury, Mick Jagger, Robert Plant, and Ronnie Wood, demonstrate the complex dynamics of the rock world, where artistic differences, class backgrounds, and personal loyalties often collide in explosive ways. These stories remind us that behind the glamorous facade of rock stardom lie very human struggles over identity, authenticity, and the meaning of success in music.